So John A1 asks, who are your top 5 players entering the 2020 season in college football? So this isn't just a Notre Dame related question, guys. This is sort of a top 5 players in college football heading into the 2022 season, in your opinion.
All right, I'm going to be very forthcoming that my list is going to have some NFL draft implications in it. I'm sorry.
Shocker.
It's what I know. It's what I know, man. It's what I know. No order. Will Anderson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Jalen Carter, Michael Mayer. No order.
Okay. So you said you had 3 non-quarterbacks, right? Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, Michael Mayer. And then Bryce Stroud and CJ Stroud, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud.
Bryce Stroud sounds like a good football player, though.
Just kind of throw that into one. Like, we'll get the 2 quarterbacks because they're always going to be in some sort of list. Ryan, I think the only one I would maybe contemplate switching out is I would consider Bijan Robinson in there instead of Michael Mayer. It would be debatable. I was actually surprised one of you guys said Michael Mayer because I had thought about it, but I was like, well, let's see if they do. I'm not sure if I'm ready to go. I think he's top 10 for sure. But I would probably, the 2 quarterbacks I'm with you on, Jalen Carter's an absolute monster. I thought he was the best D lineman Georgia had last year, and they had 2 first-round picks on their D line last year, 3 first-round picks on their D line last year. That's right, because I keep forgetting Trevon Walker and I keep forgetting about Devante Wyatt. That's the one I keep forgetting about.
Mm-hmm.
So and I thought he was their best player last year. There's some corners, the people will throw out, Ricks is a guy that I'm not really a high on the Ricks train in that regard. I think he's still a lot of hype, as far as the consistently proven substance. There's a lot of really good receivers. I'm not sure if I would put any of them in this conversation. I don't think any of them are stars. I think a lot of them are stats guys. Maybe. He's got to show me he can be the guy, though. That's the one thing, where look, he was a tremendous player last year, but it's a lot easier to be that guy when you've got, Garrett Wilson on one side of you, and then you've got Chris Olave on the other side of you. So we'll see this year if he can be that guy. Now, of course, the one game he played in last year, either one of those 2 guys, he had over 300 yards receiving. My asterisk on that, as phenomenal as that was, is he was being checked by a lot of dudes that weren't that good because of all the injuries that they had in the secondary last year. It's not like he was out there torching Clark Phillips every other play.
No, they stopped throwing at Clark Phillips.
Right.
All right, we're good.
Right. Let's pick on the backup running back who just scored a touchdown, who's also now playing defense. Let's go after that guy.
Clark had an interception, forced the fumble. They're like, we're good.
Yeah, we're not going to throw at that guy anymore. So that would be it. Vince, what's your 5? And then I'm curious if you guys kind of have some other guys whose names kind of pop in your heads as you look at this kind of.
So you guys covered. I wrote down 4 or 5 guys. You guys covered all of them except for Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think that kid.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kid's a stud. Everybody's bringing him up over here in the chat as well for good reason. This kid's arguably the best wide receiver in the country, and I think I'm a little bit biased because we also get to see him in person on September 3rd, and I'm really excited about that. So, diving into Ohio State and things like that, he excites me. I'm excited to see what he can do versus Notre Dame. So he would be the only one I would add to the guys that you guys were already talking about.
For me, he's a top 10 player. Again, I have to see him prove that he can be the guy.
Sure.
Do I think he will? Yeah, that's why I have him in the top 10. But when I think of Will Anderson, when I think of Jalen Carter, when I think of Michael Mayer, I'm talking about guys that can just physically take over a football game.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackson Smith-Njigba, as primarily a slot last year, is not a guy that I look at and say, is he going to go into a playoff game like Devontae Smith did and take over ball games? That remains to be seen to a degree for me. But again, it's more of a nitpicking elite players in order to figure out who's truly the cream of the crop. It's not he's not that good. He's not going to have big numbers this year. No, he's a stud. I think he's I would make the case he is the best receiver in college football. Ryan, I think you and I are on the same page. Jordan Addison's a pretty good player. I think Jordan Addison's incredibly overrated in regard to people looking at him as a top 10 player. He was not the best receiver in college football last year. I know he won the Biletnikoff Award, but that doesn't mean, in my opinion, you're the best player the best receiver in college football. That's who they pick. But In any other guys that kind of jump out at you as like the Ricks kid from Alabama will get a lot of talk. I think Keely Ringo's a better player than he is. Like I just my opinion as far as we're talking about cornerbacks.
He's much more talented. If I had to throw out a couple more guys, Miles Murphy from Clemson would probably be maybe somewhere in the top 10. He's a fantastic defensive end. I really like Antonio Johnson, the safety from Texas A&M. That kid was a stud last year. He was such a good football player. And then this is kind of an off-the-wall pick because it's not a Power 5 guy, but I think Andre Carter from Army deserves a little hype.
I was going to ask you about
15
him.
sacks or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian, he's like a verified 6'6.5", 250 pounds. Like they don't come to Army very often. Man.
Yeah,
like,
you're not going to have – I don't want that guy in combat because it's like how do you hide that guy behind a
he was a –
You put him behind a
zero. He was a 0-star recruit somehow. I don't know how.
Then he's no good.
He must be a late bloomer, I guess. But yeah.
He can't be good then if he's not
right. He doesn't have any stars.
Yeah, he had a sack against Wisconsin last year. Had a sack in the bowl game against Missouri. So here's the crazy thing: he had one sack the year before. One sack.
I know.
Good year.
Like talking about breaking out of nowhere. 2 tackles for loss against both of those teams. So I always like when those kids. I always like looking at how they perform against the better teams on their schedule or against Power 5 teams.
Yep.
And he's performed pretty well in those games, no doubt.
He's a good player, man. Good player.
Yeah, Michael Mayer, I think, is the one. I think that like Clemson has 2 guys that I think, if healthy, can be on there. Miles Murphy, Brian Breezy is another guy that I think deserves. When he's healthy and on, he's one of the 3 or 4 best defensive linemen in college football, in my opinion. The problem is I can't put him in this conversation yet. He's like a player to watch type of discussion because he hasn't proven to me he can stay healthy and dominate for a full season. I just hope that if he dominates this year, that's 11 out of 12 regular season games, not the November 5th game in South Bend. He's a guy.
But I'll say this, Brian, like his flashes, like he hasn't put it all together yet, obviously because of injuries and just I didn't love how Brett Venables used him in that defense too, to be very honest with you, but his flashes are up there with Jalen Carter. Like he's got special traits as a player. He just hasn't obviously tangibly done it enough right now.
A guy that's on my radar as a breakout who's not in that discussion now, who I think could jump in now, I think Xavier Worthy is going to be a star. I absolutely love that kid. And between him and Bijan, they are going to complement each other really well. You can't take them both out of the game. If Texas can get some other guys to step up and provide some support, I think Xavier, because he had, look at his numbers now, 62 catches for 981 yards and 12 touchdowns as a true freshman with Casey Thompson and Hunter Card throwing him passes. Now, I think Quinn Ewers is overrated and people, number 1 quarterback of all time. Nonsense, but he's not a bum either. He's got talent. He's got a much bigger arm than some of those guys. And the one thing is, I felt at times they struggled to get him the ball vertically against some of the better defenses because the quarterbacks couldn't get it to him. That's not going to – for all the things we could criticize and nitpick Quinn Ewers about, getting the ball down the field is not going to be a problem. So I would not be shocked if Xavier Worthy is the player who's contending for the best receiver conversation with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Because I think right now he's the clear number 1 to me. I don't think he's arguably the best receiver in college football. I think he is the best receiver in college football. I'm just not. There's a lot of other good players. I'm just not quite as high on like the Jordan Addisons. I think I love Josh Downs. I would honestly, I would have more nightmares and headaches trying to defend Josh Downs than I would Jordan Addison, in my opinion, as just an individual player. Now, Jordan Addison is going to have better players around him than Josh Downs will, but that's kind of my stance. But Xavier Worthy is a guy that's sort of on my let's keep an eye out on that guy, as far as someone who could break out. There's really no linebackers that I look at and say that they're possibly
the only one that popped in my head, and he's more of a wait and see kind of guy because he did have a lot of production last year, but now he's going to be the guy, is Trenton Simpson from Clemson. Yeah. He's a really talented player.
And he's going to have some dudes in front of him. We talked about the 2 other guys, but Tyler Davis was a guy we were thinking was going to be that star a couple years ago, and he's still a good player. He just it's kind of overshadowed by even better players. So Trenton Simpson is going to be unblocked a lot this year.
And he can run, sir.
Yes,
how about you a Noah Sewell fan? Noah Sewell might put up some numbers.
We'll see. I want to see how he's going to look without some of the guys in front of him that he had last year and also with the new defense.
Sure.
I'm very curious how he's going to adjust to a new defense. I think he's a good player. I get real nervous about Pac-12 defensive players, to be honest with you, just because I feel like line play in the Pac-12 has been pretty bad in recent seasons. So it's kind of like, let me see how he does against so-and-so, this team, that's not a Pac-12 team. So he's in my conversation for top 7 to 8 linebackers, like the kid from Alabama, but none of those kids to me, like Trenton Simpson's the only guy to me that has just the dynamic all-around athleticism, production, and all that to maybe be in that conversation. I think there's like one other kid. I'm trying to there's an SEC kid.
Trivia question.
Yeah.
Trivia question. Who led college football in total tackles last year?
Oh, I don't know.
FBS.
I'm not sure.
You have nothing?
No.
Vince? You got something for me?
No.
Jack Campbell in Iowa.
Jack Campbell from Iowa.
Okay.
That's it. 143 tackles last year, man. He was balling.
That's some generous statistical
recording. Dude had 6 fewer solo tackles than JD Bertrand.
Yeah. That's a lot of assists.
Oh, well.
86 assisted tackles. That's some Luke Kuechly type.
The football.
Jumping on top of that pile at the end.
Listen,
assist right there. Assist.
I kept stats for my team. Okay, assists are very circumstantial, man. I'll tell you that.
I was the linebacker in the meetings that was like, we're watching video, and I was like, that's another tackle.
My man had 3.5 tackles for loss and 1 sack. He was a dog pile assist guy. Is what he was last year.
Nah. He's Phil Parker's guy, man. You don't know what you're talking
generous
about.
assist, baby.
Yeah.